Welcome, everyone, to episode number 4. I can't believe it's already 4 episodes. This episode is entitled The Most I've Worked Between 9 to 5 because applying for a job is a lot of hard work. So we have an amazing guest today. His name is Fred Harris, and he's going to be telling us a little bit about his experiences. He's been laid off recently and how he sort of navigates through all these resumes and networking portals and what we should be doing. He's got some really great tips. So you guys need to stay tuned.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm glad to be here, Jigna. Thanks for having Fred come with us. And I just want to let you know, I wore today just because it's a lot of work being out of the office, as that it is. So I wore my out of office hat today. Woo-hoo. So looking forward to meeting Fred. So shall we?
Let's do it.
Our guest today is Fred Harris. Fred, thank you for joining us. We're
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I wish it was under better circumstances and not because we're all in the unemployment club. So, sorry about that. Fred, you want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, so I guess first off, Fred Harris is my name. I have been a Dallasite now for just well over 25 years. Have had the pleasure of working in the tech industry for the majority of my life around marketing, advanced customer types of roles, where we are strengthening our brand with our potential customers, and also had the esteemed pleasure of working with Miss Jigna for a few years there at Cognizant, so that was great. And now unemployed, so yeah.
Well, you're in good
welcome.
company.
Welcome to the club. 44 million in all. So it's nothing to be proud of. However, we have a large group of individuals that will help and support each other. And that's what we're doing right now. What we want to do is pick your brain. We want to know how you're doing, how you're dealing with everything. We understand it's very stressful. Working to find a job is a stressful thing. The most I've worked between 9 to 5, right? Like how hard is it to work towards getting a job? So we want to talk a little bit about that with you. So tell us a little bit about, how does your day sort of start out when you're doing a job search, when you're looking for a good career opportunity?
I don't think my day ever ends looking for a job. I find myself, even in the traditional hours of combing through the main sites of LinkedIn, Glassdoor, Indeed, all of those popular sites of networking.
All right, so let me ask you. So I've been on like LinkedIn and Glassdoor. I haven't really trolled Indeed much because I don't. So do you find that one any good? I'm just curious. Like.
Found a couple of good things on Indeed, surprisingly. It's not for all those Indeeders out there, it's not my go-to.
Yeah, it's not mine either. That's why I was curious if you're finding it, making it worthwhile.
It's not number 3 on if I had to rank them all, like with LinkedIn being first, right? Because it seems like it's the strongest network. Mm-hmm. You have there's a lot of collaborators. It seems that you get more real-time information from recruiters who are actually posting their jobs. I think the accessibility to those job posters are a little stronger using LinkedIn versus Indeed. And I'm not saying, I'm not getting paid to say, this is just my own personal experience. And I found that it's easier to network. And it's easier to market yourself. And I've found some real creative ways to market myself and to be able to get my name out there in a way that draws people to my profile. Yeah.
So you get up in the morning. Do you start first thing in the morning?
I start first thing in the morning, and I think I don't end until I actually go to bed. But I get up in the morning. I see off most relationships. I see my partner off to work in the morning, and have a good day, honey. Here's your coffee. Call me. We'll talk about dinner later. And then I'm in my home office, and it starts about 6:30, and it goes from usually 6:30 to 9. I'll take a break. I'll probably do whatever chores that need to be done in the house. I may tiptoe back in about 1-ish. Spend another couple of hours, and then maybe fix dinner, spend time with my partner, try and figure out how our days were, compare notes. And then he may go off to do some work. I may come back on and start trolling again. I hate that word, trolling. Looking.
You got it from me. I said it earlier. I know. But sometimes I feel like that's what I'm doing. Like I'm just looking through like job, and then I'm like, sometimes I just look and see what kind of jobs are out there. Just curious. Like there was like design shopper or something at Target. I don't know. I was like, what is this even? Like,
and then how did you get matched with it? Sometimes you get the most bizarre matches. And like, why did you think that in my skill set, you thought this might be a good fit for me? Do you find that some of those search engines, the job search engines are better at matching you with the right fit for you versus others? Have you found one better or one that just fits better for you?
I have not. I think so those who have designed the software for matching, I think they hang on to one nugget of your word, and then you get matched with everything that's attached to that nugget. So
that's true.
Experience. Yeah, it is. My job title in my last role was global events and sales enablement. So they find sales, and that is like tied to sales is hitting my inbox. It's like, I am not a salesperson, let alone an automotive salesperson. Nothing against those who sell automotives. That's a great skill set, but I'm not a salesperson. That's just not me. So I find myself weeding through those search engines to say, how did you match me with something that entrepreneurship? No, I'm sorry. I really don't want to be an entrepreneur. I kind of like having a steady paycheck and not depending on the environment, or in I say environment, the world, to supplement my income. I mean, otherwise, here we are, as we've seen, this pandemic has affected a lot of small businesses and business owners. You're wondering where that's going to go. So I kind of like
Yeah. I will say you also have to, I don't know if you guys have run into this, but there have been times where I've applied to something, and one experience I had was it was a contract, like a 1-day event planning gig, and I was unemployed, and I thought, okay, might as well get a little bit of money, wherever I can. So I did. I applied. I got accepted. I went and actually put the event on, and the person never paid me.
What?
Yeah. And I called, I emailed, I reached out to him. I actually found him through LinkedIn, or he found me through LinkedIn. I sent him a note on LinkedIn and nothing. And it's been a long time.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So there are some of these fakers, people who take advantage of you that are out there. But lo and behold, I found him posting it on Indeed the other day. I sure as heck reported him. Like, there's no way he's duping somebody else.
Yeah.
Good for you. Good
yeah.
For you.
I troll him now. If he ever posts anything, I will be sure.
That's kind of scary. I didn't realize there are people that would like put a thing out there and then not pay.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know what they do. I don't know what these search engines, what they actually do when it comes to these types of reports. I hope they take care of it. I hope they're diligent about it. There was another one which was a it was a event marketing position, and director, a high level position, right up my alley, fits all the skill set. I go in there. It's a multi-level marketing scheme.
Yeah.
And nothing wrong with what he does. If he makes a living out of it, great. If other people make a living out of it, great. The problem I had was false advertising. He was selling something that was not the truth, and that's where I have a hard time. Anyway, just a little stories, a couple of stories.
It's funny you should say that, because I think putting the pandemic aside, when we have such a high percentage of unemployment and people seeking jobs, I feel like there are people out there preying on that vulnerability, right? There's to you, oh my God, here's a job, let's entice this person, we suck them in, we do whatever we need them to do, and then like you get ghosted. You're just like, what the heck?
Yeah.
But you're in that mindset, I think that we're willing to do just about anything to make sure that we keep the lights on, that our kids are fed, that we were able to make the next mortgage payment or car payment, that people know that, hey, we're going to play on them and we'll get them to do our work, and then we'll just reap the benefits and not, pay them for their time and their energy. So
the other thing I find interesting, and I've noticed this on LinkedIn quite a bit actually. So I'll see a job that I meet all the qualifications, says I'm a good match for it on the profile and stuff. And then I'm like, I'll applied for it, but then like it's a couple weeks later and I see the job posted again. And I've never heard anything from the company either, other than like, we received your resume, right? And I'm thinking to myself, well, what do you think you're going to get this time around? Like, you waiting for the next set of people who got laid off 2 weeks ago? Like,
Jennifer, and it's funny you should say that, because let's take that scenario a step further. You apply for the job, you get the pre-screen interview, they come back and tell you, hey, sorry, you're not a good fit. And then 3 days later, you see the job posted, the exact same job.
Well, I'll be curious to see, because I just had that happen to me today. I had a pre-screen. And then I was told they were going to move in another direction. Now, I do know they were halfway through and a bunch of candidates already. They were like kind of in the middle of it. So maybe they've really fallen in love with one of them. But I'll be curious to watch the next
Keep an eye on that, because that's happened to me twice. I went and most had a great interview. Oh my God, your skill set is great. We love what you do. You're a good fit. We're going to move you forward. And then all of a sudden, hey, sorry, just like you said, the company went a different direction. And now you're like, okay, great. And then all of a sudden, a few days later, there's the exact same job posted. And you're going, well, why was I not a match? What happened? Or LinkedIn will tell you, hey, you're in the top 10 percentile of everyone who has applied. But yet you get kicked back. You're like, what's happening here?
Yeah, I don't know how trustworthy some of this data is. I really feel like LinkedIn is a great resource, but I do take some of the information that they share, whether it's your skill set, how much of a match it is, or whether you're a top 10 or the number of applicants even. I'm not 100% sure how accurate it is. I know they want to be, but I feel like it's maybe I'm a skeptic now because I've been duped a little bit. But I will say that's one advice I would probably have is, you should definitely look at that. I think it's entertaining in a sense, but don't believe it 100%. Or at least don't put all your eggs in that basket. Just because you want to have a little bit of a wall, maybe a thin wall, but a little bit of a wall to make sure you don't hurt yourself too much, or because it is very mentally stressful having to search and being rejected, because you go into applying for a job and you feel like, oh, I'm perfect for it. You're just gung-ho. You go through a couple of interviews. This is perfect for me. And you can't help but get so excited. But then, there's that rejection, and it just hurts every single time. So it is a little bit challenging. So, I kind of wanted to ask you a little bit of like, what is your sort of strategy? How do you sort of cope with rejection in a sense?
I think given the number of times that it's just happened, you just kind of go, okay, moving on to the next one. You don't really put that much energy into it. I don't put that much energy into it or try and figure out the reasons why. It's just like, I kind of go back to saying it wasn't meant to be. I wasn't meant to be there for whatever reason, and then just keep it moving. Because I think if you sit and wallow in why me, why not me, you're going to sleep through that opportunity that is actually meant for you. So best advice is just, don't put all of your eggs in one basket. So that way you're okay. It's easier to take the sting, but don't sit and just wallow in it. Just move on, because you are competing with 2.3 million people or whatever that number is out there with that job. So everyone else is getting rejected. So,
Yeah. So how many, if you just ballpark it, if you feel comfortable talking about this, how many jobs have you applied for thus far? I believe you got laid off in March.
I got laid off in March, so March 13th. So,
Okay.
if you
Was it a
imagine,
Friday?
so it's yes, it was a so funny story. My official last, so I got notified in February, so I had 2 weeks to find a job, and then my official last day was Friday, March the 13th. Yes, Friday the 13th, which was ironically 4 days before my official 6-year anniversary. So
Oh.
let's couple all that together and then try and like pull yourself up. It took a minute. I had to get through it, but I did it. But to answer your question, I'm applying for at least 4 to 5 jobs a day.
Okay.
At least. Now I know to some people it's like, wow, that's a little. Why are you not applying for more? Well, folks, here's my 2 cents to that. It takes about 20 minutes to apply.
Oh yeah.
If not more.
If not more.
Yeah.
I think 4 or 5 is quite a bit actually a day, because I find too, like, there's a lot of positions that maybe 5-6 years ago in my career I would have been the right fit, but I could still do that job, but they're not, like, how many people want to take someone who's been at the director level and push them back to a senior specialist? And they're going to think,
right,
well, you're not going to want to stay as a training senior specialist for like that long, so why would I invest my time in you? And it's kind of this weird, like, well, how many positions are there to apply for?
It is. And then you also think, I guess, Jigna, from our perspective, we've been in lead roles as event managers, as event coordinator. I wouldn't say coordinator, but as an events person.
Manager, yeah. Director level, yeah.
Yeah. We have worked and really put our dues in. And then sometimes I feel like, why am I stepping backwards to apply for a coordinator job? Why do I feel like I have to go back to planning 101 when I could probably teach this class? But then it's like you said earlier, Jennifer, if you take the call or take the job, that's what they're thinking. You're only going to be here for a hot second. And then you yourself are going, well, there were reasons why I took this job. I had to take a step back for whatever personal financial reasons, which this is just a pit stop on the next. Explain that to someone. Why did you go from a director to a senior specialist? Or why did you go from a director or a manager to a coordinator?
And I want to just make sure, we talk a little bit about us. We're not being pretentious about this, right? We're being realistic about this. There's nothing wrong with, starting out again in a lower position, if that makes sense for all of us. The challenge we're finding is like what you were saying. Even if we apply, the hiring manager, the recruiter is saying, this person has 10, 15, 20 years of experience. They're not going to strive in a coordinator position, or we can't afford them. That's the other thing people say. Even though I may want to work for 50% less than what I used to get paid because I got bills to pay, I have mouths to feed. I'm happy to pay, get paid less. But what we're finding is that some of these hiring managers are not even wanting to talk to us because we have a lot of experience. And that's the challenge is, where do you sort of, draw the line? And so is there a formula that you're using? I guess Jennifer and Fred, like, are you guys using a certain formula when you're searching for jobs? What makes most sense for me to apply for this job versus this one?
Jennifer, I'll let you take that one.
It's interesting because the thing is this, like, it's, I sit there and I look through, I go back and read the description. So I'll use the example of, my whole career has been in learning and development. I've, spent the last good half of my 6 years in as either a senior manager or director. And so going back, we're looking kind of at a sense of, okay, moving back to a specialist or a training manager, for sure, I would definitely, to me, that's not a big deal. But going back to a specialist or even a senior specialist, it's not that I'm worried about taking that level step back. I think it's to kind of look for the skill set, and especially when I see like they're looking for someone who has maybe 2 to 5 years experience. When they say that's kind of it's the level coming in, and I said, and I think, well, kind of to Fred's point earlier, it takes 20 minutes to fill out one of these online things because you can't just upload your resume. You got to clean it up or copy and paste it and refix it. And do I want to take the time to do that when then I think I'm fairly certain that the recruiter is going to go, well, why you're just, they're not even going to look at me. So I think that's kind of where I'm trying to draw the line, is looking at the level years of experience they're looking at. And if it's anything under 5 years experience is where they're kind of preferred, I'm not applying, because I'm like 20 versus 5 years. But if they're saying 8 to 10 years experience is what they're looking for, even though that's still, I have twice as much, maybe they'll consider it given the time that we're in. It's just but the thing is, I also know I'm competing with people who are in that sweet spot that they're looking for. And so it's just really tough.
It's really tough.
I think it's, Jigna, 3 things. One, Jennifer, to your point, I think my sweet spot somewhere between the 7 to 10 year mark, because I'm not quite the director level yet, but I've earned my place as maybe a manager or a senior lead or senior consultant. So I'm kind of in that spot. I also think, Jigna, that being in high tech has spoiled me a lot, because people see that you work for these major technical companies, tech companies, whomever they may be, or these national brand companies. They're thinking, oh my God, we can't afford you because you worked for, I don't know, SPB technology. And we all know that most tech companies pay quite a bit. So we get spoiled, but that's also to our detriment, that people are we can't afford you automatically. Well, why don't you let me determine what I can afford instead of making that determination for me? You've taken that away from me. And then I kind of look at, my skill set. It's like, how can I contribute? What can I bring to this that they're not looking for, that they haven't listed? Right? What have I done that could help them go, okay, well, maybe it's worth paying a little extra and then maybe rewriting the job description. And I've had people companies to rewrite the job description because I fit 90% of it, but the way that they've got it, maybe HR has the compensation package to that title, then they rewrite it and then, still get the desired salary I'm after in the job and still be able to get that skill set. So in short, try to 5 to 7 years, 5 to 10 years is kind of my sweet spot. And what do I have? And I also look at, can I do 75 to 80% of that job? The rest of it, you're going to learn.
So that's interesting. More about, us being a minority and with you being minorities and unconscious biases, whether it's in ourselves or the hiring companies, what have you sort of seen in the market?
I think I've seen a huge shift in the market when it comes to hiring processes. I don't know, or procedures. I don't know if recent current events have made that shift a lot further, maybe stronger, maybe more noticeable.
Accelerated.
Accelerated, yeah. I think that's probably the best word, accelerated. To where now things are happening that may not have happened traditionally or in the past. We are seeing more women in leadership roles, which I'm thrilled about. We're also seeing more women of color, or actually people of color being, taking on those leadership roles. Now, here's what I would hope to see from those people who have stepped in those roles, who are representing us, whether it's a person of color, whether it's a female, whether it's an LGBTQ person. I would hope that they would do, we have the saying is that send the elevator back down when you get to the top. You know what I mean? Don't just get there and stay. Help others to break those glass ceilings, to be seen for their, the content of their character, right? Rather than the color of their skin or their gender. See them for what they can do. And I truly hope that those people who are stepping in those diversity and inclusion roles, who are senior people who are CROs, CMOs, or whatever four-letter initials you'd like to put behind it, are actually sending the elevator back down and recognizing that and bringing that back to bringing those people up as well.
That's good to hear that you are sort of seeing that shift. I feel that we have a long way to go, but it sounds like
Absolutely.
it has accelerated in the recent. Maybe that's a positive that's come out of all the things that have been in the media with Black Lives Matter and All Lives Matter even.
Yes.
And it's interesting to see what that's gonna where it's gonna land at the end of this whole thing, whether it's still going to be in the forefront, or is this something that's important because it's in the media.
Is it just a campaign, or are you actually incorporating in your culture?
Right. Are you actually walking the talk, right? I mean, and I always say, once all the pomp and circumstance is over, are you still going to be able to make that shift? Are you still going to be able to carry that banner? Because we are so quick to jump on board and then just kind of jump off once there's no more. Once all the hype is gone, so to speak, we tend to forget what that shift was, why we accelerated. So hopefully we don't lose that momentum, and that we keep going, and that we keep making it better all the way around. I mean, even gender pay gaps, right? Mm-hmm. We saw this landmark decision of the LGBTQ, mm-hmm. That Supreme Court is saying, hey, you can't be fired for being gay or bisexual or transgender. I think that's a huge leap. And when we talk about these leaps and these historic moments in our world, in the world that we live in, I also want to remind folks that it wasn't that long ago that, everything that people have been fighting for, no matter what your background is, if you're fighting for equality, civil rights, 60s, that how we're talking not that long ago. So, a lot of, like you said, Jigna, we've come a long way, but we still have a long road
to go. Yeah. There are unconscious biases that are always. Question for you around resumes, to put your picture on there or not to put your picture on there?
I can go either way with that.
We kind of talked about the other day, and I said, as soon as I get your resume, look you up on LinkedIn, and if you put your picture there, then
that's kind of where I left it with that kind of discussion, is that if you're going to do your due diligence, you are going to find me. You're going to figure out first of all, you're going to look at my skill set, and then you're going to be pleasantly surprised at what I look like, whether you were hoping for a different look or feel, you're going to see that. So whether I put it on my resume or put it on LinkedIn, or if you're smart, do a social media search, you're going to see my picture out there anyway. So,
Yeah, 20 years ago, I think it was a really different story when we didn't have LinkedIn and Facebook or those things, and asking people because I can remember from even in college, one of my sorority sisters was like, she was putting on her resume, her name is Lee, but it's not Leigh, it's Lee, but her middle name is Ann. She just put her Lee A and then her last name. Like, she didn't put, so they wouldn't know she was a female or a male walking into the interview. But now, today, that you would know right away, because like you said, you do any bit of a due diligence and you look them up on LinkedIn or anything before you walk in. And even if it's not the recruiter doing it, it's usually the hiring manager who's going out and looking for you everywhere they can find you, so they have a sense about who you are.
Right.
Yeah. So
remember? Sorry, Jimmy.
No, go ahead.
Do you both remember that ABC, what was it, Nightline or Dateline, where they took the names of the resumes that they had and how people would discern from whatever family name that you may have against the traditional names? A Quaisha versus a Beverly, how they did that. And even me, I don't think people would would suspect a Black male as Fred Harris.
Well, there's also an age thing, I think, too, with names. So like, like when you said Beverly, the first thing in my head comes is somebody who's older, because I don't think it's been used as much with younger people today.
Yeah.
Like Fred, I don't know if you're maybe the first Fred I've talked to in a long time. Like, how many Freds are out there?
You're old, Fred.
At least she wasn't named a fish or a dog or something. Right?
You figure Jennifer, she's either going to be in her 40s somewhere, because that's what was real popular, like in the early 70s, or then it made a big comeback when J-Lo made it big. There was a lot of people naming their girls Jennifer again. So they're 40 or in their 20s. So you kind of have your sense of who, Jennifer is there. But
I like the trickery names, like Shannon. You never
Leslie.
Or Leslie. You never know what you're going to get. You know, those gender neutral names, right? You just don't know. Because I have friends who are named Shannon, and one's a male and one's a female. And I think depending on how they're spelled may give it away a little bit. But oftentimes those gender neutral names, Taylor.
Mm-hmm. Right? Like Lee, as I was using earlier.
Yeah, Lee. So I kind of like that gender neutral stuff. So
it's interesting to sometimes, I guess, dupe the recruiter, the HR person. I love to do a little bit of research. So it kind of reminds me of a story when I had applied for a position at my where Fred and I used to work back in the day, a long time ago. So when I was actually married during that time, and my last name was actually an Eastern European last name. Nothing like what I look like, It was actually a very common last name in that area, which is, a dictator had that name. So it was a pretty famous last name. So when I had applied for this position, and I eventually, interviewed, I went there in person, and had a great conversation, and eventually got the job. And a few months later, my boss at the time, amazing person, and we still keep in touch to this day because she's so amazing. And she, told me, she kind of confided in me. She's like, Jigna, when you walked in, I was really expecting a tall, blonde-haired, blue-eyed European person, and here you come. You look nothing like what I thought. So it was, and it did not really faze her. She could have cared less. Actually, it benefited that I was in Indian, because it was an IT company which had a large presence overseas in India. So it was to my benefit that I was Indian for that particular position. But it was just interesting to see or hear these stories that, people are these preconceived notions about you that people have, whether they're good or bad. In my case, it was fine, but in other cases, not so much.
And before you even select some of those companies, I mean, we probably have biases too to like the companies we want to pick for. Like there's a lot of positions out there I've seen too in training in healthcare, and I keep I keep thinking maybe I should apply for them, but I don't know if I really want to work in healthcare. Like maybe it's just because I'm not a science person. I don't know. Like I keep trying to think, but that's not what I would be doing. So like it's like, that's my second go-to list, right? So like so you're 5 out. So I'm trying to think, 5 jobs, 20 minutes, it's 100 minutes, right? So we're now, probably takes you, plus you need some breaks, over 2 hours to do that. And then you spent some time searching for those just 5 to apply for. What would you think it took to get to those?
You need to add another 20 to 30 minutes to tweak your resume to apply for those jobs as well. Because you got to change every single time, right? Do you find yourself doing that? Yeah.
You do. You really do. And Jennifer, I would even take it even a step further, because sometimes you upload your resume. Well, then they want you to go fill in those gaps. So
and then it's done some weird things, and
and you're just kind of like, now I have to go back and add in. Why did you ask me for my resume if I'm gonna have to type all this in? I could have just typed it in and saved myself that 20 or extra 30 minutes to do that. So I would say it probably takes about 30 to 45 minutes to get through an application, right? Or if you find it on LinkedIn or whatever search engine that you're using, you're now going to have to click to their website. And then
Yes.
create a profile on their website. And then you have to upload your resume on that website. And then you're going to have to, all the little integral pieces. Sometimes you just get frustrated, and I just say, screw it, I'm done. It's not that important for me.
Okay, so how many have you run across? I've run across a few too now that are make you take like some test, like
Yes.
like
Yes.
one was like analytical stuff. Like I was like, and they're timed, and so it makes me like, and this is where I don't like these. 'Cause I think there's some bias in those as well. Like I'm a panic test taker. Like in college, like tests were not my thing. Like so, and plus too, some of this stuff, I haven't seen some of these equations in years. It's like when my kids were having to be homeschooled because of the pandemic and I was trying to do math with them. I was like, don't ask me, go ask your stepdad or ask your dad because he's the engineer. I'm not, Right. So, those things too, like I sometimes want to just, I'm kind of curious, like, I don't even know what they're really using it for, especially the analytical ones, like versus some of the, like we talked about Jigna, like the predictive index before, but like kind of how you'll behave and personality wise in situations. But I don't know. There's so many out there. It's crazy.
It's so many out there. And I think that's another bias. I wonder if they are seeing if you actually will go through it. And if you get through to the end, will they move you forward? There's no.
I don't know. I failed one and it said I can't reapply for 60 days and then I can try to take it again.
Oh no. Wait, there is a company out there and that they want you to take a test. And if you fail the test, you can't apply for another year. It's kind of weird. But then they say, well, do the best that you can. This has no bearing on who you are. And it's like, yeah, I think it does. And I think it really hurts both parties. I think it hurts the company because you just missed out on an excellent person. I am great talent. You just passed up on great talent.
Especially when the tests have nothing to do with what you'd be doing.
Yeah, exactly.
Again, if I was going to be some analysis data person all day, then yeah, I get why you might want to see that I have that. Or if I'm going to have to code something, you might want to have me do a coding exam, but those are not, the roles I'm looking at. So like, that's what really blows my mind.
Yeah, there was a time where I had to put together a presentation, in-person presentation, and they want you to be very creative. And in the event management field, if you're going to do that, you're bringing in things from the outside. You have like giveaways and products, and it can become really expensive to do that, especially if you want to put your best foot forward, right? And I remember spending over $100 some odd to do this presentation and bringing all the elements together because they wanted me to provide, like, I think it was 3 different experiences, event options for a dinner. And, with each element, how would you incorporate them? And, they don't want you to just do a PowerPoint presentation. They want you to make it come alive. Use your creativity. So you're spending all this money. They're asking you to spend all this money in a sense. There's no reimbursement. And this is just one of the initial interviews. This isn't even the second or the third. So they're seeing maybe 10, 15 people who are also spending all this money. And I feel like that sometimes becomes really unfair for these companies to do that and require these types of projects in a sense. If that would be an ask I would have is if you're a company and you're wanting some creatives, if you're wanting someone to go out of their way above and beyond, then provide some sort of a budget, and say you have $50 or you have $100 from us, we will reimburse you. There was another place, I've applied so many places and I've interviewed at so many places. There's another place I actually interviewed, and they were really great. They actually reimbursed me for my travels. And it was a local, just for my mileage. to and from, which I thought was very generous of them to do that. I think companies need to really realize how important it is to really take care of not just their team members, but also those who are going to be, hired on or they're interviewing.
Well, the good news is now that they're probably just going to interview you over Zoom, so you don't have to worry about mileage and
it's true.
doing things in person.
Jigna, you talk about that, and I often wonder, are you taking my creative ideas and using them if after I don't get the job? I mean,
No, I didn't know you did the same thing.
Yes.
No, this is the first time we're talking in like how many years?
Yeah, and it's like, are you taking my idea and using it down the road? I mean, it's like, what creative?
Great minds, Fred. Great minds. Great.
So free labor. Out there doing this job search a little longer than Jigna and I, because it was the end of April when we got let go.
Yeah.
So, one thing you both made me think of, and I haven't done it yet, and I'm like, I probably should do this, is put together a portfolio of projects or training programs I've put together in the past and some metrics around them and have those ready to share with employers should I make it past that second make it past the first interview and to get the second round or third round, whatever it might be. So do you have a portfolio of stuff you have ready to go right now? Have you done that?
I have not done that. However, when you were talking about metrics, I did rewrite my about section in LinkedIn.
Ooh, that's a good idea.
I'm gonna call her out. Her name is Courtney, and Courtney and I was hoping to apply for a role that she had, and unfortunately, my skill set wasn't the match that she was looking for. But she has maintained sort of a mentorship with me, and she was helping me knock on some doors. She was using her LinkedIn connections to help me knock on some doors, and she said, "I need 2 sentences or 3 sentences that tells me about you." And I said, "Oh, great! So we all go to this. I thrive in a fast-paced environment, and I can do this and I can do that." And she wrote back. And she was like, "No, that is awful. Basically, that sucked. That didn't tell me anything about you." So back to your point, Jennifer, she made me go back and really think about, how did I move the needle? Metrics are everything. Numbers are everything. So I rewrote it to say something of, I'm a sales enablement marketing professional that has managed a budget of $300,000 for said events, driving, 500 people to my booth, something that's going to say this guy or this girl or this individual can move the needle. And when I thought about that and I redid my about and put that in there, my views went up probably about 40 to 50% just because those metrics were actually in there. And it actually garnered people to request a LinkedIn connection, some good LinkedIn connections, and hopefully that'll go down to leading a job one day. But no, to your original point, I have not created a portfolio of such.
So that's one of the reasons we wanted to talk with you today is, Fred, you had a really great LinkedIn presence, and your post was very, it was to the point, it was poetic. It was great in networking. Your post was when I saw it, I was very impressed, and I thought, okay, this guy knows how to network. One of the biggest challenges I personally have had with networking is I felt like a bit of an imposter when I would ask for, hey, think of me, here's my resume. I couldn't do it in a natural way. I didn't know how to. I'm still learning. I don't know how to do that. And what I find myself doing is doing a quick small chat, and I feel not good about it because I know at the end I'm asking them for help, So give us some tips on how do we not feel like an imposter? How do we network in the right way?
Bring your authentic self. That's the first thing that I would say. And the second thing that I would also say is, as hard as it is, don't be afraid to ask for help. You can do it in a way that really, for me, I did a number of ways. One was the post that you saw. And my advice to you is take it, tweak it to whatever you need. I think sharing that sort of stuff is only going to garner more connections. And if it gets you into a company, hopefully you'll bring me along with you. So, opening those doors. So that's the first thing that I would do. And I'll tell you something else that I did was I went out to Google and I searched how to make LinkedIn requests. And I found a great one in I can't remember the exact verbiage, but anyway, essentially it just says, hey, my name is Fred Harris. I would love to be part of your network. I'm seeking I'm building new opportunity. I'm looking for new opportunities and building my professional network. I would love to be part of your network, something to that effect. And just kind of said, once we connect, I would love to share my resume and profile with you for jobs that you're currently working on, or maybe future opportunities you could be working on. I just kind of left it at that. And I also went and did a search. I made a list of those companies that I wanted to work for, and I went in and I hit people, and I sent that canned message to everyone who had the title recruiter or talent acquisition. And I did it first off to 8 people, and I got 6 to reply yes. And then I've made 2 connections that these 2 folks now have my resume. Oh, they all have my resume. So I followed up on that process once we connected. And then, and I've also kind of monitored what they're posting. A few of them have posted jobs, and I've applied to some of them, and hopefully, we'll see. So those are sort of the things that I did. I had to kind of separate myself from the pack. Like you said, how do I ask for help without, seeming needy? So
that's great, Fred. Are you okay if we share some of your that specific post with our listeners, and maybe even a sample of how you reach out through the messaging?
So yeah, I don't mind at all. I will definitely share that with you. Some of the things that I've done. I've also noticed that because I've invested and have a long time ago prior to this into the LinkedIn.
I was going to ask, so one of the other things to talk about on LinkedIn before we move on from that is one thing I noticed that I did was I wrote a couple articles, and when I put those, it really made my views go up on my LinkedIn. So I think that's another way to bring some attention to your LinkedIn profile.
You're absolutely right. Yeah, and so for the post that you saw, Jigna, I actually put in a hashtag. I went into that hashtag group and put that in there, and then hashtag a lot of it, so it would tag those groups, those people who were searching. So yeah, I think the more activity that you have, the more your views will go up. Sometimes the more people will view your profile, and then get a good connection out of it.
It takes a lot of work though. I spent 2 days writing one article to try to get it right. So.
Yeah, I mean that whole About Me didn't happen overnight. It was just kind of oh my God, how do I do this without sounding like a pompous ass? Look, I'm a know-it-all. Is that going to turn people off, or is that going to bring people to me?
And that's the other thing, is tooting your own horn, right? How hard is that? You've always been taught growing up, don't do that. You have to be modest, humble. And I remember having out to, we are our own worst enemy when it comes to this stuff. So it's interesting to see, yeah.
We do. We stand in our way a lot. And I think that probably comes from, like you said, being ingrained to talk about that. And you touched on do's and don'ts, and I'll come back to a don't and a do. But when we do that, we realize that no one's gonna toot our own horn if we don't beat ourselves, and but do it in a way that doesn't make you seem obnoxious. Mm-hmm. This is, hey guys, together I led the charge, and with the help of my friends, this is what we've accomplished. I mean, don't forget that it's not always you that has made a difference. And bring those people with you. I think you get more support that way. If you don't, you say, hey, I led the charge, but I couldn't have done it without the help of the people. So
yeah, I agree. That's the key right now, especially is being that global citizen and being there for one another and seeing how we can help each other out. There have been times where I've seen positions and I thought, okay, I'm applying for it, but I know this other person's probably a better fit for this than I am. Do I or do I not? Because I need to feed some mouths, So how selfish am I going to be with this? Or do I share the wealth? And that's an internal struggle I feel like a lot of people are probably having right now is how much do you care for yourself, and then where do you sort of spread your wings and help out and whatnot. Have you had any experiences around that? What have you sort of seen?
I have. I have. I actually thought to myself, I could do this role. But I know someone else that could take it and run with it. Like I could do it, but I know that there's someone who can take it and run with it. And I feel like for me, by doing that, like Jigna, if I know that there's a director role that I think you can do, but I know that I can do it, but you're stronger at it, I would punt it to you in a heartbeat and just say, hey, I saw this, thinking of you, hope it works out. And for me, it's good karma. I think I'm putting a good energy in the universe that something good will come back, that my job, what's meant for me will be there. So I try to do that. It's taken me a long time to get to that point because old Fred would have like, whatever, this is mine. I'm hoarding it for myself, right? But, evolved Fred would say, I know that there's someone that's a stronger fit for this, that's well suited for this. Let's give that to that person, and then I'll continue my search. My blessing is coming soon. So
we call that karma quotient, filling your karma quotient here at Laid Off Life. So good job. We're proud of you, Fred Harris. Keep doing what you're doing. Well, you're filling your karma quotient by just sharing today. So we really appreciate that.
So. Absolutely. Before we go, I know Jigna, we were talking earlier about do's and don'ts. And my question to both of you is, when do you talk about salary?
What you said, we talk about salary?
Yes. When do you talk about salary? Do you talk about it at the beginning with the recruiter? Do you wait until the second interview? When, because I know the cliche is you never talk about salary up front. You wait till the end. But when do you do it? And I will start by saying I personally will bring it up at the beginning, at the pre-screen piece of it. And here's my personal reason why. I don't, as I tell the recruiters at the beginning, I want to make sure that we're aligned before we go further, before we set up interviews, before I go down the path of creating the PowerPoint charts and putting the portfolios and stuff together, and find at the very end that we are misaligned. Like, not by a few thousand, like by several $1,000s. And I also think that sort of weeds out a lot of the jobs up front. And I'm not wasting time. And more importantly, the recruiter's not wasting time either, because once they get you down to that final stages and you say no or you can't agree on it, then everybody's now starting all over. And I know everyone says, well, you shouldn't put, like I said earlier, you shouldn't put all of your eggs in one basket. But when things are progressing, you really kind of shift your focus to that opportunity. So what are your thoughts?
I have Jennifer, you want to go first?
Yeah, mine's pretty quick. It's my experience has been recently in the last couple years has been anytime a recruiter started a conversation with me, either if I've initiated it or they've asked me that question up front. And I don't know if it's been more so, I don't know if it's because I've been at the more director level now, as senior managers, they're really trying to figure out, again, like you're saying, they don't want to waste my time or their time. So they're trying to establish what they're weeding out. What was weird for me in a recent call though was I like in this time of the world, like, do you be greedy or not be greedy? Like, is my salary expectation still accurate given the world situation where I know some companies have taken pay cuts and this or that. So I kind of was like, that was the one I had to really kind of rethink about, was like when the recruiter asked me, well, what would you want and your salary expectations? And I just was like, I said for a minute, I have to think, because I said the world's kind of changed a minute here. I'm, trying to think about that one. So that was really the only time I've been kind of stumped, but otherwise they ask it up front and it kind of becomes, it is what it is. And I always think though, go for a little bit more. Pre-pandemic, I guess I was like, go for a little bit more, because they could always say, well, we were really thinking this, and maybe you can meet somewhere in that middle, or you can have some kind of sign-on bonus that if you do certain things in a certain amount of time or whatever it might be. So there's just different ways, I think, to manage that expectation. But yeah, I mean, I'd rather get it out of the way up front too. So
that's a good question, Fred. I similar to Jennifer, it's generally it seems like it's a recruiter's job now, or the HR person's job who initially has the interview with you to sort of weed that out, or just take care of that part, because you don't want anyone to waste their time if it's not a good fit financially. I do feel it's the company's responsibility to provide what their expectation or their window is for that versus what we should be providing.
We should frustration that we all feel when applying, whether you're applying for an admin job or whether you're applying for a director level or C-suite level job. The time that you're investing in it is applicable to everybody. We're all facing the same.
Yeah.
Upload your resume here, but then you have to go and fill in the gaps here. Then you get frustrated in the amount of time, because I think we all say that it's a full-time job, looking for a full-time job.
Well, and even that, like, just teenagers who are looking for a job, like I'll use my son and some of his friends, for example. Like, they filled out applications, they were told they had to fill them online at Costco. And so they wouldn't do it online. They've heard nothing. So then they decided, they saw Target was hiring. So they thought they'd go to Target and just get some more information. And Target told them, go fill it out online. Yeah. And they're like, well, if I fill it out online, can I come back and also drop off a resume? And they're like, no, just do it online. So they were like frustrated. They're like, all I want to do
is.
And
it's that perpetual circle, right? I feel like that hamster, because the first thing we tell everybody is, right, go look out on the web, go apply on the web. And then you wonder who's going to see that. And then I will give you a perfect example. I applied for a job at said company, matched about 80% of the role. Got the thank you, we've got your application, we're reviewing it. 2 hours later, literally 2 hours later, I got a thank you, but no, we've moved on with someone else. How? How did you disqualify me so quickly?
Yeah, it's the system that did it. They didn't even look at your resume.
You didn't even look at it. You didn't even look at it. So, back to your point, Jennifer, even as teenagers, they're feeling kind of what we're feeling as adults. You go back, you fill this out, you hear nothing. Or it's so simple, I just want to drop off a resume. I want to. How many kids are actually eager to go to work? That's the first thing. So that should be a clue.
And that's what they thought. They thought if they showed up with like a resume, like that they would get more attention given to them, because like there are a couple of 16, 17-year-old boys walking in saying, hey, like I'm interested, I want to work, and here's what I can. They wanted to show too that they're all probably like, we can lift boxes and we want to do this so we have extra workouts for football. But
I know that there's a reason for everything, but I think sometimes these reasons don't make sense, that they're so convoluted, and that people like myself sometimes get frustrated.
But it really does mess with your mind, and you just don't know what is right. Oh goodness. Well, I don't want it to be this Debbie Downer type of a situation here, but it's a reality. So Fred, we always talk about our favorite show, Seinfeld, and we pull from it. And I remember George Costanza, losing his job, and he was trying to figure out what to do. And he just decided to go ahead and go on a vacation. I believe he got a severance package or something. He's like, I'll just go ahead and go on a vacation. And everyone else is like, shouldn't you be saving this money and really, making it last longer? And I always, sometimes you feel like I just need a break. I need a mind refresh. I just need to do that. And people feel so guilty about it as well. And Fred, have you and Jennifer, have you guys ever had to, done something like that? Maybe frivolous is too harsh of a word, but like something along that line to where like you've just felt like it's probably not the best financial decision, but I gotta do it because I gotta get myself out of the situation, make myself feel better.
Yeah. First of all, it's okay to. I want all of your listeners to know, and I've had to accept this myself. It's okay to take a break. It's okay to say, today I am not looking for a job. Jigna, you had talked about your shows and Seinfeld, and there's a show, I don't know if you both remember the TV show Martin with Martin Lawrence and Tisha Campbell. So in this particular episode, Martin is somehow upset that Tisha's working too many hours, or Gina is her character's name. Gina's working way too many hours. She's not coming home and taking care of the house and fixing dinners. So he goes and he talks to her boss. Anyway, Gina ends up losing her job. And so now Gina's at home with nothing to do. And as you see towards the middle of this episode, Martin goes to work and he comes home and there's Gina and her hair's all a mess. She's in sweats and, and she's sitting there. She goes, "So Martin, what did you do? How was your day?" And he's like, "Nothing, baby. I just had a couple of minutes." She goes, No. Start from the beginning. You got out the car. So
that is her only source of entertainment.
That's her only source of entertainment, right? She's sitting there. She's catching up on all these TV shows and all of these things. So the first couple of weeks of my layoff, my partner had gone to work and I saw this episode and he came home and I said, "So how was your day?" He goes, "All right." I said, "So what did you do?" He goes, "I had a couple of minutes." I said, "No! You got in the car, you drove up to the door."
Play by play, please.
I wanted play by play. And he just kind of looked at me and just like, "I'm going into the kitchen to find a snack." So
a fortune cookie with Fred this time, so he gets to hear what our fortune is.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah.
I'm sorry we don't have one that we can give you virtually. We could open another one and make it your fortune.
We should open one up just for Fred.
I think so.
You guys are so awesome. Yeah.
Some fortune. Do you have an extra one? It's cookie time. Cookie
so
fortune.
Fred,
cookie
you get
time.
to choose who gets to open theirs first. You, me, or Jennifer.
Can't go alphabetically because both. So you know what? Actually, Jennifer, you go first.
Okay. So let's see what it says. Fortune cookie time. Ooh. This one's funny. Cooking is easy. Doing dishes is the hard part. So the funny thing is around our house is I usually do the cooking and my husband does the dishes. So there you go.
Perfect. That one was made for you.
There you go. Okay, who's next?
There you go. Jigna, we'll let you go next.
Okay. That can make a lot of noise. Alrighty. See what it says. Okay. This is interesting, Jennifer. Kind of goes in line with yours. Aren't you glad you just had a great meal?
It's too funny.
It's. I just want to. Let's make sure the next one is a food theme.
Okay, let's see what Fred's is. This is Fred's fortune. Okay,
here need a hat trick.
Okay. Oh, and the cookie even broke very nicely. Like directly, look at this, just right in half, like that. Perfect. That was
wow.
That's a good sign. Good sign.
Okay, it is a good sign. Ooh. I don't know. This one's tough though. It's a really deep one. Courage comes through suffering. So.
Well, I've got a lot of courage right now.
Yeah. There you go.
I've got a lot of courage right now.
So we'll see how that turns out. So yeah, there you go. Well, Fred, we thank you for joining us today.
Thank you both for having me.
Yeah, good luck.
Thank you so much, Fred. You're awesome.
So glad we could at least catch up. So.